Free agency week is here, and it is about to get hectic for the Sixers. What will James Harden decide to do? What may happen with Tobias Harris? We will break down everything you need to know about free agency right here on Philly Take with RB.
Perfect.
What is going on, everybody? RB here. Welcome into the show. Like always, hit the like button if you enjoy the content. Be sure to subscribe and also ring that bell down below. That way you don't miss any of the coverage. Today we're back, and I want to break down and react to a few articles from some of the Sixers media that talk about everything free agency related, really get into what may happen this week and really what you need to know in simple terms to get ready for this weekend and everything that could happen. We have an NBA trade already going down. We will break down all of it. But before we do, shout out to our sponsor of today's video, Manta Sleep. You guys got to check out the Manta Sleep Mask Pro. All my insomniacs out there that want to get rested up for Friday when free agency starts, this is the product for you. I'm laying down at night. My mind's always wandering 5 million directions. The Manta Sleep Mask Pro has helped me personally take my sleep to the next level. This thing has true 100% blackout for deep sleep, C-shaped eye cups for side sleep comfort. You put it over your head, very lightweight product, very breathable. You can lay on your back, your side, your stomach. It doesn't matter. This thing takes out all the distractions. No more light peeking in your window. No more notifications popping up on your phone. It blacks out everything. Even if you want to take a nap during the day, this product is for you. They have advanced materials built right into it for unmatched breathability. Really just a well-made product that I think more people should know about, especially for people out there who have tried different supplements to aid their sleep. So go check out the Manta Sleep Mask Pro down below in the description. Click the link, go to mantasleep.com and use promo code PhillyTake to get 10% off of your order. All right, man, let's get into it. So let's start off with the big bang that hit free agency week earlier today. Woj putting it on Twitter here. We have a big trade. ESPN sources, the Hawks finalizing a trade to send John Collins to the Utah Jazz in exchange for Rudy Gay and a future second-round pick. Yes, you heard that right. Rudy Gay, who's 36 years old, and a second-round pick is all it took to get John Collins. This was merely a salary dump. As it says, Atlanta unloading Collins the next 3 years, $78 million for some roster-building flexibility. Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a huge turn of events compared to some of the other trades we have seen. I mean, obviously, we feel like, you know, with the Beal deal and things like that, you know, one team's getting fleeced, but that is nothing compared to this. I mean, they literally just dumped John Collins off the books. And the reason I bring this up is because my oh so wonderful Tobias Harris trade idea that I thought was underrated to the Utah Jazz is probably out the window now. I'd say 90% because the Jazz just took on another big contract in John Collins. Why would they want to bring in another huge contract in Tobias Harris? So now, you know, when I say Tobias for Clarkson and Olynyk, I don't see that happening. Maybe the Sixers could still get one of those pieces. The rumors are that the Jazz might try to move Olynyk, but I don't know if that package would end up even being close to a thing now as the Jazz went out and made another move. You look at what Danny Ainge has done. He has literally reconstructed the Jazz in 1 year, and they still have a ton of draft assets left over. Must be nice. But let's get into the Sixers stuff. So we'll start with Tobias Harris. Really, I want to clarify a couple things from yesterday's video. And look, yesterday on the video, I said I'm just reporting here on the rumors that were put out there, and I need to call up my cap experts. Well, Kyle Neubeck stood up to the plate. And as I always say, Kyle's our number one go-to here. And think of it like two rappers having a rap battle and one makes a diss track, right? This is that kind of form here, but think of it in terms of Sixers media members, right? Kyle Neubeck today essentially dropped the diss track at Keith Pompey, and I'm here for it. I'm sitting back eating my popcorn, but really, there's some good information in this article. So Kyle Neubeck puts this on Twitter today. He says the first rule of Tobias trade rumors is that they should be legal under either version of the NBA's new CBA, the old or the new CBA. So let's go ahead and take a look at that article, because essentially, I mean, it's a diss track at Keith Pompey. So here's what Kyle Neubeck has to say about Tobias Harris. He says that Philly's Harden-sized domino is the most important thing they have to deal with. I can appreciate the urgency from a fan base desperate for more success. Again, there's going to be a lot of information-heavy stuff today. for all my free agency junkies out there. But he says, over the weekend, there was a lot of discussion about Tobias Harris's list of potential suitors. The driving force behind most of the rumors was Keith Pompey. Even name dropped them over at the Inquirer. Then he talks about the quotes, in terms of Tobias, DeAndre Ayton, that potential proposed three-way trade and how that would work out. Kyle Neubeck says the first red flag here should have been thought of before publishing is the suggestion that Phoenix was actively looking to trade for Harris specifically, but when it came to finding a third team, their position was basically figure it out yourselves to the Sixers. Not sure the logic holds up. And when I talked about that rumor yesterday, I literally said when talking about it, what assets, what kind of draft assets are we talking about? Because they worded it as assets to Philly, right? What kind of assets? So I agree. It didn't really make much sense at all. And he says, Pompey followed up by essentially saying the time for deal making was over 24 hours after. And then they talk more about the Suns and things like that. I even heard a follow-up thing today talking about how essentially the rumor came from Tobias Harris's dad, right? We talked about his assassin score comments. Now people are alluding to the fact that maybe Terrell Harris is just trying to build up his own son's value, saying that he's the most unstoppable, that he can't be stopped and things like that, to try to get him to a new situation. And honestly, I wouldn't blame him. He talks about the crazy Cavs rumor that, included Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and a draft pick. Neubeck continues to go into that, but here's the information you need to know regarding Tobias Harris. He says, let's get into the main problem of the reporting. The trade is straight up illegal and would be illegal under either version of the CBA. Number one, Harris's salary was roughly 132% of their combined salaries, which is larger than the 125% plus 100K rule the trade would have had to clear prior to July 1st. This is talking about the Cleveland trade with Allen, Mobley, and a pick. Number two, if executed after July 1st, teams over the apron can only take back 110% of outgoing salary. This is under the new CBA, making it even more illegal than it would have been prior to July 1st. Number three, it says this part is unclear because reporting on the subject was scarce, but it appears the Cavs exceeded the taxpayer mid-level by signing Danny Green for $2 million mid-season after signing Rubio, which hard-capped themselves for the rest of the year. That would have made this proposal swap for Harris illegal in another way, if that's the case. So essentially, Kyle Neubeck is just firing shots at Keith Pompey, telling him that all his work and research is incorrect and false and really would just not be legal under the CBA. He says, it is not my understanding that the Sixers go around hoping to make and propose illegal trades all the time, but your mileage may vary. Yo, shout out to Neubeck, man. He is sitting on his high horse here and he is firing shots. I love it, man. He says, this is not the first time that Pompey has played up the Sixers bargaining position in trade talks. That he talks about the Ben Simmons trade talks, how essentially it was worded similarly, and that was the reporting on it. So yeah, Kyle Neubeck is pretty much saying that this trade and all the other things that have been said about Tobias the last couple of days are essentially illegal. The most important thing right here, listen to this. Any discussions with other teams have been way short of completion, with the Sixers content to keep Harris or at least waiting out some other deal-making periods, which will come later this summer or closer to the trade deadline. The Sixers will continue to consider trades for the veteran forward, but they are under no immediate pressure to move him and are operating as such. So that tells you right there all you need to know. It's going to be tough for the Sixers to trade Tobias. All these other trades are going on. It really just does not seem like they are going to trade him at this point unless a wow offer comes out of nowhere and Daryl Morey cannot resist. But anyway, that's the latest on Tobias Harris. So we'll continue to report the rumors, the rumored trades, but as Kyle Neubeck said, make sure they are legal. Now let's talk about James Harden because, as Kyle alluded to, as I've said all week, the past couple weeks, the whole offseason, the main domino in this whole thing is James Harden. How much can he sign for? What could a potential contract look like? Let me know your thoughts down below. Will he sign this week? There are some important things that you need to know. A couple quick reports from today. Brian Toporek puts this out on Twitter from the Stein Line article. The idea that James Harden will re-sign with the Sixers has gained momentum over the past week or two. Word is Harden came away from his introductory meeting with the new Sixers coach, Nick Nurse, intrigued by the vision. So they have sat down together, they met, and they talked ball, which is a good thing for James Harden if you want him to return. On the other hand, we get this report today saying that Harden to Houston is still a strong possibility. So who knows? At the end of the day, I look at context clues. The Rockets went out, they drafted Amin Thompson, they drafted Cam Whitmore, they've stacked up on guards, and they still have a ton of cap space. There will be some free agents out there they will look to target. Some other rumors going on. I would expect James Harden to return to Philly. It seems like Houston is also expecting that, but not completely ruling it out at this time. So that's where we are at. But big shout out to Brian Toporek, who put out an insane free agency article over on Liberty Ballers. And obviously we don't have time to read all of it. So I do recommend that you do check this out. But there are some main things in here that you need to know leading up to Sixers free agency. And all my junkies out there will enjoy this one. And to be honest with you, I mean, I've read up on the new CBA, but there are a lot of things I still don't know. And Toporek did a great job summarizing that in this article. But let's talk about the main things you need to know this week. So James Harden in a couple days has a deadline to either accept or decline his option, $35.6 million for this upcoming season. It seems to me that he is going to decline that option and try to get maybe either a 2, 3, or 4-year deal. Meanwhile, George Niang, McDaniels, Shake Milton, Trez, and Reed will all be joining him in free agency. And then Maxey and Melton each become eligible for extensions on July 1st. And obviously this will be operating under the new CBA. You have Tobias Harris, etc. So let's talk about where the Sixers are at. With Daniel House picking up his option and Montrezl Harrell declining his option, the Sixers are currently projected to have roughly $122.1 million on their books. This can change as Embiid will get 35% of whatever the salary cap winds up being, since he will be entering the first year of a Supermax contract. Shams gave the updated numbers last week, $136 million for the salary cap, $165 for the luxury tax, but it will change a little bit as we go forward. He says even if Harden leaves and they renounce the rights to all their other free agents, the Sixers would have less than $9.5 million in cap space after factoring in 4 incomplete roster charges. Doing so, or they'd be better off retaining the cap holds for their free agents. Doing so would give them access to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception of $12.4 million rather than the $7.7 room mid-level exception. So essentially they would have more flexibility if they retain these cap holds. Again, this is like really in-depth stuff that you need to know about the salary cap, but Toporek does a great job of summing it up. So he talks about with James Harden. Again, this was reported on draft night by Windhorst that the Sixers are feeling positive about their ability to re-sign James Harden, and all things lead towards James Harden re-signing with the Sixers. But you may be asking, how much can he sign for? What would a contract look like? If it's up to me, I would go 2 years with a player option in the second year. I would probably lean towards the Sixers maybe giving a 3-year deal, depending on what Harden's options are. But maybe there is no market. Maybe the Houston Rockets aren't going nearly in terms of what we expect or what we hear. So maybe the Sixers do have a little bit more leverage. Now, in terms of James Harden, based on the current $136 million cap projection, Harden's max starting salary this offseason will be $47.6 million. What does this mean? James Harden can make a maximum of $47.6 million per year. If the Sixers bring him back on a max or near max deal, that alone would push them over the $165 million luxury tax, which would hinder their ability to add an impact player in free agency. And just like last year, man, the Sixers got hard capped because, James Harden ended up taking a pay cut, and then they used the exceptions to get PJ Tucker and Daniel House. So it almost feels like they're going to be in a similar situation this year, depending on what James Harden does. Again, that is the main domino, right? You got the coach. Now it's up to James Harden. Now, in terms of the new CBA, this is a lot of stuff that I was learning about reading this. The current CBA only had one salary cap apron, the hard cap. And now under the new CBA, there is another apron. So last year, if they used the non-taxpayer mid-level or the biannual exception, which they use both, they would be hard capped, as it says here when they signed Tucker and Daniel House. The new CBA features a second apron set $17.5 million above the luxury tax with harsher restrictions. Beginning this offseason, teams that go above that second hard cap will lose access to the taxpayer mid-level, cannot take back more than 110% of the salary that they send out in a trade, and cannot sign players on the buyout market whose salaries were higher than the non-taxpayer mid-level. So if you go above that second apron, you are facing a lot more harsh restrictions, and it's going to get even worse next offseason, which is why everybody's been talking about, and you may have heard, oh, under the new CBA, it's going to be hard to build this type of team. Under the new CBA, teams are going to get restricted. They're going to have to find these minimum value players, right? These, maybe minimum vets or guys like that who sign a lot lower than what you would expect their value to be, or that produce above their level, kind of like a Bruce Brown in free agency this past year. And in terms of the non-Harden free agents, he talks about all these guys. He says Paul Reed will probably be in the range of $7 to $8 million in terms of an annual salary, which I do think is fair. McDaniels and Niang are in a wait and see bucket. I do think it would be a failure if McDaniels leaves, given the fact that, you gave up a second rounder, you gave up Matisse Thybulle, who was on an all defensive team, to get Jalen McDaniels. He didn't play in games 4 to 7, of the second round series. And if you let him walk now, then what was the point of even trading for Jalen McDaniels? So it says both of them, they'll be cautious about overplaying either player in terms of McDaniels or Niang. So they don't want to go above the market. Shake Milton seems to be on his way out, and he talks a little bit more about those guys. Then he talks about some targets. One of them that I was surprised to see on here was Bruce Brown. Could the Sixers actually go out there, and if they do get the non-taxpayer mid-level, could they go out and sign Bruce Brown, a guy that is kind of a jack of all trades, does a little bit of everything? He says if Harden does leave, the non-taxpayer mid-level will not be enough for Kyrie, Fred VanVleet, or D'Angelo Russell. So they might have to then turn to Russell Westbrook, Trey Jones, Gabe Vincent, or Kobe White, or Dennis Schroeder, or Jordan Clarkson, who has a player option. I don't know if they'd be able to afford him, which is why I wanted to propose that trade of Tobias going to the Utah Jazz. Then he goes and lists some other guys. He says if Harden returns and they're limited to the taxpayer mid-level, it'll be difficult to land an impact forward at that price. So again, the Sixers are very limited either way. I mean, really, the way to improve this team is to trade Tobias Harris, but will there be a move that moves the needle for the Philadelphia 76ers? And then they talk about the Tobias Harris teams that have been interested in them. Obviously, the Hawks made a trade today, so a little bit different. The last thing I want to talk about here is the extensions for Tyrese Maxey and DeAnthony Melton in terms of what you might expect to see. So the NBA hasn't released an updated salary cap projection. The Sixers should be able to offer Maxey a 5-year max worth north of $200 million. Let me know your thoughts down below. Would you offer Tyrese Maxey a 5-year max contract? Let me know. They could also put designated player language that will make him eligible for a 30% max if he is named an MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, or an All-NBA team player next year. Under the current CBA, teams had to offer max contracts if they wanted to give a 5th year to a player coming off a rookie scale deal, and otherwise they were limited to 4-year extensions. However, the new CBA allows teams to offer 5-year non-max extensions. So something you might be able to see there, maybe a little bit of wiggle room, and the Sixers can negotiate. In terms of DeAnthony Melton, it says under the previous CBA, teams could offer a starting salary no greater than 120% of their previous salary or 120% of the estimated average salary on an extension. But with Melton set to earn only $8 million in this upcoming season, the Sixers couldn't offer more than a 4-year extension worth around $63 under the old rules. However, now you can offer a starting salary no greater than 140% or 140% of the estimated average salary. So using those projections, the Sixers would be able to offer DeAnthony Melton a 4-year, $74 million extension. Could they offer him something in that range? Seems pretty likely, depending on what his role is going forward. But I know it's a lot of information. That's kind of where we are at. So that's what you should probably expect to see this upcoming week into the offseason. Again, the main domino. What will James Harden do? It seems likely he will opt out, but what will then the new contract look like? That is the biggest factor here. Obviously, the Sixers want to compete, so they view re-signing James Harden as the best way to do that. But then you start to get into these extensions with Tyrese Maxey, with DeAnthony Melton, who have up until October, and it's going to get complicated. But really, to me, it's starting to feel like just a little bit, they may be running this thing back with a new coach. It seemed like Daryl Morey thought Doc Rivers was the biggest flaw, but obviously this team had others as well. And hopefully Daryl realizes that and still tries to move Tobias to make this team better if there is a way to do so. So those are all my thoughts. Give me yours down below. Appreciate everybody hanging in. We will be covering the free agency live. Any news that breaks this week, we'll be talking about it. And we will be live on Friday right before 6 p.m. to live react and give you analysis of all of the trades or free agents or whatever happens, all the breakdown, because you know Woj is going to tweet out about 500 things at one time. We'll react. We'll talk about it all. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Give me all your thoughts down below on Sixers free agency. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And with that being said, I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.